The last 7 years have been challenging for Nigeria in the area of food security. Industry players insist the situation has been more intense this year.
Indeed, Ademola, the reports have shown that many states did quite badly on the country's food production index. For instance, more than 4.7 million people in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states experienced severe food insecurity in March.
Yes, Victor, and later in May this year, there were also reports that the food inflation rose to 40.53%, driven by factors including currency depreciation and high transportation and import cost.
Well, let's also recall a recent report on the impact of floods in 10 states and an impending food shortage. These all suggest that Nigeria must urgently take steps to check food shortage. And this is more urgent because the zero hunger target set by the UN SDGs goals number 2 is just 6 years away.
Managers of Nigeria's agri sector are not unaware of these issues and the link between food insecurity and poverty. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, says the current food supply issues in Nigeria is due to depletion of food reserves, insecurity, flooding, Naira redesign, and COVID-19 pandemic, among other factors.
Now, there was also a halt in purchase and the restocking of the strategic grain reserve shortly after the ministers were sworn in to defy market forces. But a lot has been done to address these food supply glitches. A state of emergency was declared on food security in July of 2023, for instance. A strategy was also developed to avert the annual food shortage experienced between May and June.
But this did not do much to help in spite of growth rate of 7 million per annum. The dry season farming was introduced in November 2023 with wheat in the first phase and rice, maize and cassava in the second phase.
Well, these and other efforts were targeted at ameliorating the current food supply challenge. After 1 year in office, how has the journey been for one of Nigeria's rebranded ministries, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security? We have guests joining us shortly. So let me, on that note, welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Victor Azu.
Let me also join Victor in welcoming you to today's program. We are reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Chukudi Okoli Ugbaja will join us later for the newspaper review, but that will be after highlights of the news with Comfort Amodu. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Ademola and Victor. Here are the highlights of the news. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has extended his profound condolences to the government and the people of Jigawa State over the recent flooding that has led to the loss of lives and displacement of many citizens. The president also commiserates with the bereaved families and victims of the flooding, which has impacted about 14 local government areas and many households. In a statement signed by Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngilali, the President states that recurring environmental disasters underscore the urgency of sustaining measures to address climate change and its perils, as well as remove man-made elements to the challenge. And the federal government has approved an upward review of fees for the Nigerian passport. In a statement by Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Kenneth Udo, the new fees, which take effect from September 1st, 2024, is part of efforts to maintain the quality and integrity of the Nigerian standard passport. With this review, a 32-page passport booklet with a 5-year validity, currently charged at 35,000 naira, will become 50,000 naira, while a 64-page passport booklet with 10-year validity is currently 70,000 naira. and will become, which was currently 70,000 naira, will now be sold or purchased at a higher amount, and however indicates that the fee remains unchanged abroad. While expressing regret for any inconvenience this increase might cause prospective applicants, and the Nigerian Immigration Service assures Nigerians of its unwavering commitment to transparency and quality service delivery at all times. More states have continued to pull out of the national electricity market to establish the Electricity Commission in compliance with the amended Constitution of Nigeria and the Electricity Act 2023. Edo State is the latest sub-national to pull out of the national electricity market as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission issues an order transferring regulatory oversight of the electricity markets in the state. That's from the Commission to the Edo State Electricity Regulatory Commission. NERC directs Benin Electricity Distribution Company to incorporate a subsidiary to assume responsibilities for intra-state supply and distribution of electricity in Edo State. Away from that, the High Court sitting in Makurdi has granted an ex parte application barring the National Working Committee of the Governing All Progressives Congress from removing members of a state working committee in an interim judgment. A judgment of a 9-man state member working committee led by its chairman, Augustine Agada, was recognized as the genuine officials of the party with full rights to exercise functions as may be required by the party at the state level. Meanwhile, in a swift action, the National Working Committee has sworn in a 6-member committee led by Benjamin Omale to oversee the party affairs in the next 6 months and ensure the conduct of primaries for chairmen and councillors in the forthcoming local government polls in the state.
7-man caretaker committee to run the affairs of the party for the next 6 months.
And beyond service delivery, federal government says industry players in the power sector must have access to electricity as a fundamental right of everyone in the country. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu, while inaugurating power sector communication team, says customers deserve the right to know why there is power outage or any other challenge in the sector, hence the need for effective communication. He emphasized that electricity customers should not be left out in the dark with happenings in the sector, as he tasked the communication team to brace up and deliver results.
Around the power sector, we envision a Nigeria where electricity is not just a luxury, but a fundamental human right. It is everybody's entitlement. To achieve this, we must work together, and we believe that effective communication is key.
That's the news at this time. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Victor and Ademola right after this break. Good morning.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we have more than just solution.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a life.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Relief is coming. More wages, reduced costs. Nigeria's national minimum wage is now 70,000 naira and it will be reviewed every 3 years. The federal government will commence immediate implementation and state governments are being encouraged to follow suit. With the presidential CNG initiative, transport costs are coming down. Are you a car owner or a transporter? Visit www.pci.gov.ng to find out how you can benefit from switching to CNG. This is the renewed hope.
NTA Television College Jos, with a pedigree of producing indelible professionals in the media space and an affiliate of the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, for the award of Degree in Mass Communication, calls on prospective candidates to leverage on the following courses it offers for 2024-2025 academic session. BSc Mass Communication, those with minimum admissible score of 180 and above who sat for the 2024 JAMB/UTME and direct entry, while 100 to 179 minimum admissible score can apply for the National Innovation Diploma NID in Film and Television Production, Broadcast Journalism and Television Engineering. For more inquiries, visit our website or call 0803 383 4343. Announcer, Registrar.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country. That God has kept together as one indivisible entity.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Thanks for staying with us. You are still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next on the program is Newspaper Review.
All right, it's time for newspaper review, and I have the singular honor and pleasure to welcome Chukwudi Okolibaja.
You could as well add prestige. As if you're introducing God's lieutenant.
Who knows?
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Who knows?
Nowhere.
So flattery will get you nowhere. Debo, how are you doing?
I'm doing great,
good
my
morning.
brother.
Victor, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys.
Welcome. Well, let's get straight to business. I have two papers here, and I'll begin with the New Telegraph. And it leads with the headline, Seized Aircraft, French Court Lacks Jurisdiction Over Matter. That's according to Professor Sagi. As one sovereign can't preside in judgment over another, says Nigeria being kicked about like football globally. Chinese companies' action insulting. Urges FG to stop guaranteeing subnationals as states not reliable. Finally, Chinese firm can't attach assets belonging to Nigeria in judgment debt. That's according to Adebayo. That story is on pages 2 and 11. And above that major story, Obi to Tinubu tell Nigerians the age, cost of presidential jet. And then beside it, on pages, of course, that story is on page 4, and beside it, on pages 2 and 6, leave NLC president alone, go after bandits, oil thieves, Ugo Chinyere tells police. Nigeria at crossroads, that's according to Pengasson. And then on page 9, competence, not tribe, will decide winner of Edo Guba poll. That's according to Labour candidate Akpata. And above the nameplate, there's this tiny strip up there, but not so the story. FG hinges aviation sector's survival on thriving airports. You can get details of that on page 7. And at the bottom of the front page of the New Telegraph, PDP crisis, I can't be intimidated. No one can pressure me to resign. That's according to Damagum. Describes Clark's criticism as sentimental. I'll remain in PDP to fight on, Wike says. That story is on pages 2 and 4. And there's something related to what we are discussing later today. FG ramps up food production to keep inflation at lowest ebb. Expert warns of prolonged food crisis, prefers solution. Pages 3 and 28. Okay, let's, and then this one we have to take. Police launch rescue operation for abducted medical students. FG using obsolete mapping to tackle insecurity. That's according to surveyors. Pages 4 and 29. All the stories on New Telegraph this morning seem to be spread across pages. Well, let's go to the blueprint, which leads with this story. How 30 unknown gunmen, kidnappers, were killed in Enugu. That's according to ESNG. Abductors hide hostages in poultry farm. That story begins on the front page and ends on page 8. Okay? Wike declares pack and pay scheme in FCT illegal. That story is on page 15. Banks adopt strategies to meet 1.29 trillion naira recapitalization target. That one is on page 21. And in sports, AFCON qualifiers, Super Eagles open camp September. That is on page 32. I think we've read a number of the others on the front page of the New Telegraph, the Damagum story, Wike, and the rest of them. Demola?
Okay, thank you, Victor. And I have the leadership newspaper with me. And above the nameplates, Kekere takes over as CGN today. The details of the story can be found on page 8. Community mourns as bandit mother Sariki Gobi. The details of that story is on page 6. Then we have trending police death of man who fasted 19 days. And more trouble as Chinese investor seizes Nigeria's houses in UK. Details of that story can be found on page 7. We won't leave PDP for vampires. Damugo Wike fights back. 9 days after, pressure mounts for rescue of 20 abducted medical students. Details of the story can be found on page 7. Then we have the contract fraud. Kano LG boss, PAMSEC orders arrested. Nigeria ranks 6th highest AI search interest in Africa. Details on page 24. Federal government launches national single window to boost trade. Details on page 23. Pack and pay scheme illegal in FCT. Details on page 16. Chooks.
Thank you, Demola. But I am coming in, rather sadly. as we receive reports that gunman eventually killed Sarkin Gobe, that's of Bawa. It's a most unfortunate incident.
Really?
No death is inferior to another death.
Mm-hmm.
But when impunity is taken to the level of Isarki being killed in captivity, while negotiations were on to address the 60 million naira they were asking for, you really have to get sad. Because what it means is that no one is safe. What happens when you kill a policeman, for instance? I tell you, that is impunity of the highest order. Because the police would protect their own. So if you dare kill a policeman, you really are asking for an entire battalion of the force to come after you wherever you're hiding. When you take it to killing a Sariki as well, it almost ranks at the same level. The point I'm making is this. If you dare at that level, it means that those of us who are rabble there are indeed in trouble. So it tells the security forces that the job is far from done.
Yeah.
We must keep on working. Not just the security forces. Whoever sees something should say something.
It's really, really a sad development.
It's very sad.
It's really, really very sad.
It is very sad.
And also to cap it with the 20 abducted medical students.
Exactly.
They are still in captivity.
Yes.
We just pray for their safe, return, because you never can predict what these kidnappers can do.
Somebody could decide to send a devilish message. I agree.
I think it calls for, looking again at the security situation by the security forces. Because it's everywhere.
They're always looking.
It's everywhere. You know that recently in Imo, traditional rulers, I think, holding a meeting, were just wiped out like that. And that wouldn't be the first. That wouldn't be the first. And so it happens over and over. Only a couple of days ago here in Abuja, we lost a very dear colleague, a member of this team, to gunpoint, knife point attack,
yes.
Which tells a sad story and something that really needs to be looked into.
Urgent
by
attention.
those calls for urgent attention.
Yes, the abducted medical students, of course, are now a national headache.
Really?
Which we must take an effective analgesic for. A complete cure is needed.
It is.
Security lapses here and there.
People now, live in fears. In sense that you are even afraid to travel from one state to the other. So you are just afraid. What if I travel by road? What will happen?
It's become a situation of, you mean anything could happen to me at any time?
Yeah. So
we know life is not assured.
Yeah,
but it's becoming too unpredictable in terms of
very, very
how
unpredictable.
safe we are. And since you mentioned it, I've not talked about it. Our driver who was, I call that murdered. The man deliberately pushed a knife into him. And do you know what irks me? The access where he was attacked has always been known to be notorious. Notorious. So I begin to ask, how much vigilance have we adopted towards that access? From that road to Wuse on the bridge, mosque area, the bush there with bananas and plantains in it. We need to monitor that portion.
There
are many
this
shanties.
Is in town.
Yes.
This is in town, close to places like the CBN.
Yes.
CBN of all places.
Somebody said something,
because there are
which
shanties
could
around
make villagers like me a bit happy. He said, it is now safer to stay outside of Abuja than to be in the metropolis. That is not a good commentary. We are talking about the federal capital. Some people are saying it's now safer to be in the villages
and the place you call the central business district or business area.
It does not send a good message to those who are asking to come and invest here. It doesn't matter who got killed.
Well, there's this story I missed. I'm sure we don't have too much time. Prices of Gari, tomatoes, others drop in Anambra, Ebonyi, and Enugu. And that story is on page 6 of the blueprint. But I dare say Abuja too, because yesterday tomatoes that I bought for 1,005, some time ago became 1,002, and yesterday, I could get it for like 400 or so.
You know, when the hunger protest happened, I said to myself, somebody I feel is a very competent helmsman, the president. Please, I'm not a sycophant. I mean what I say. It's my opinion. Is actually being, buffeted from all sides by circumstance, because it's actually a time of leanness naturally in the year. You have got into a time of harvest, so those things that were coming as pangs of pain will drop naturally. Tomato is seasonal, the high prices of tomato. But what actually happened in the case of tomato is that an ailment attacked, the tomatoes way up the north there. What a minister told us that, So it is to be expected that prices will drop. Imagine some people now go 3 cups of groundnut and groundnuts, wash it down with a bottle of Coke, and that's the meal for the day. They didn't have that luxury 1.5 months ago when groundnuts were not yet out. So this is to be expected. But we now need to act and build on it so that we don't even have the hunger. Nigeria has no right to talk about being hungry. If only agriculture, the biggest foreign exchange earner potentially, is tapped into effectively.
All right. Thank you very much, Chuks. Thank you for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you.
So we hope to see you tomorrow again.
By His grace, I will be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Go break a leg.
Yeah, boy.
We'll now take a break now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Stay with us.
Imagine a world where your potential isn't limited by your bank account, where your financial dreams can become reality. That world is here with the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation scheme, Credico. Credico is one of President Tinubu's initiatives designed to put the power of consumer credit in the hands of working Nigerians. Here to help you achieve your goals, whether it's providing for your family or expanding your home or business. Visit www.credico.ng today for details. This is the renewed hope.
Can you smell the 5 million naira?
Yeah. We can.
Can you smell the 5 million naira? Name something that might be a deal breaker for you in a romantic relationship.
Trust.
Cheating.
I would say small D.
Mommy, are you shy?
It can't see. We are coping.
Oluwa Seun.
No pressure.
Pressure to what?
No pressure.
2 strikes.
No pressure.
Name a way most people get over their ex.
Crying.
Crying.
Something says.
A new edition of TV Guide is out.
This time, we got up close and personal with the transformational legislator, the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Barrow Jibrin.
It created a difference in terms of representation through interventions that have brought an unprecedented infrastructural development to my area.
This edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from technology, entertainment, economy, media, politics, family, and lots more.
It is indeed a park of excitement as we take you through every aspect of life. Pick up your copy and get abreast with issues and trending features within our space.
TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
This season, enjoy all the better moments with GoTV. Your football party GoTV, they give you better deal of decoder plus GoTenna for only 19,900 naira. Make you enjoy correct football action live on Top Super Sport. GoTV, love it.
You have to move from the point where
you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
Glad to know you're still there. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to usher us into the conversation this morning on food security, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
No doubt, Nigeria is facing significant food security challenges said to be caused by continuous conflicts, economic instability, amongst others. Many say food insecurity is much more related to socio-economic characteristics such as climate change, inflation, as well as rising food prices, aside persistent violence in the northeastern states, banditry and kidnapping, aside the annual flood. Food security is a critical issue that affects millions of people in Nigeria, being Africa's most populous country and one with significant agricultural potential. On its part, the federal government in November 2023 had launched the dry season farming, stressing that the first phase was to plant wheat, while rice, maize and cassava planted in the second phase. The Minister of Agriculture had revealed that his ministry is working with the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to take advantage of the abandoned irrigation facilities to ensure all year-round farming activities, aside signing a memorandum of understanding with an American firm to supply 2,000 tractors every year for the next 5 years. No doubt, achieving food security also involves investing in sustainable agricultural practices, supporting smallholder farmers, strengthening value chains, and improving post-harvest handling and storage systems. What further measures are the governments at all levels taking in order to ensure proper food security nationwide? Also, how well enumerated are farmers to boost them for continuous productivity? Our guest, already seated, will be answering these and more questions shortly.
Thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. Now joining us to speak on how Nigeria can achieve food security 1 year after the current minister came on board. Let me introduce Dr. Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and for Food Security. Welcome once again to Good Morning Nigeria. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians, and my pleasure to be here.
All right.
Exactly 1 year after.
1 year after. Was it 1 year? We've had you this year.
Yeah, well, I mean...
After appointment.
Oh, 1 year after appointment. Yeah. Okay. Also joining us is the President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, and also he's the President, Nigeria Agri-Business Group. Let's welcome Kabil Ibrahim. You are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Yes.
All right, we have also been joined on the program by Timitokpe Adegoroye, Managing Partner at Sahel Consulting, Agriculture and Nutrition Limited. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, Nigerians.
So let's just kickstart our conversation with the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture. We know that we have been having some issues currently in Nigeria, especially with the last protests about food, hunger and all that. So tell us, what is the state of food supply in the country right now?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and let me say straight on, the state of food supply in Nigeria is becoming positive. Becoming positive because already in this very month, August, which from all indication is the peak of rainy season, we're already beginning to see harvest coming out from various agroecologies. And I say this because usually the onset of rain starts from the southern part of the country. And definitely they start their planting, and definitely they also have their harvest early, and it keeps moving on like that up until you get into the northern part where you have most of our staples being produced. So I think the answer straight on is yes, it's becoming positive. And are we excited? Yes, we're excited, but I think our excitement does not stop just there. Our excitement is the fact that when we came on board, we met this challenge. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not mix words. He was very clear from the outside that truly there is a challenge. And that was why he declared a state of emergency. That was why he decided to change the name of the ministry from Agriculture and Rural Development to Agriculture and Food Security, to underscore the importance and the focus that he wants that ministry to give to the most important and significant intervention government should make in the life of our citizens, which is providing food, guaranteeing that there is food on the table of every Nigerian. And like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will always say, I dream of that Nigeria where no man goes to bed hungry. So we understand the problem from the outside. And what have we been doing? We have been trying to lay a solid foundation that will not just address the current challenge, but lay a foundation for what we call a sustainable food system. And a sustainable food system that will guarantee food security on a sustainable basis is what this government is all about. Now, let me point this out. When we say food security, we need to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about food being available, food being accessible, food being affordable. But all of this happening on a sustainable basis and in the right nutritional content. So it's not food security to a person when he eats only carbohydrate. It should be balanced in such a manner that it gives him good health. And that combination of actions is what defines what we have started in the last 1 year. Starting from looking at, first, our productivity index. The productivity of Nigerian farmers is low, occasioned by so many reasons, one of which is our level of mechanization. Nigeria's mechanization is 0.027 horsepower, as against 1.7, which is the African average, or 2.5, which is the global average. And to address this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has brought on board 4 key mechanization programs. The Greener Hope Agricultural Mechanization Program is 1. The Belarus Agricultural Mechanization Program is 2. The John Deere Agricultural Mechanization Program is 3. And then we have the Green Imperative, which is still in the works. Now, all of this is designed to guarantee that across the 774 local governments, over the next couple of years, we'll begin to see some changes. Now, gladly also, the subnationals have also seen that, vision, and they've started keying in. We've seen the likes of, Niger State, the former governor Umar Mohamed Bago. We've seen the likes of, His Excellency Modi of Jigawa State. We've seen the like of His Excellency Kaurang, Gwandu of Kebbi State. So all of this is being designed to bring productivity to the Nigerian farmer while removing the drudgery, which is the key, reason why the youth are not seeing agriculture as the way to go. That's number 1. Number 2, we believe farmers have to have the right seed. And in having the right seed, it starts from the germplasm, which is normally the work of our research institute. We have restored back what we call the National Seed Planning System, where we sit down to identify what our production demands are, and then we work backwards to know the number of improved seeds that should be produced by the research institute for uptake to produce the certified seed that will be planted by farmers. That has started. And we believe in doing this, when Nigerian farmers have the right seed, they'll be able to deal with their productivity. Now, the other aspect is that extension in terms of good agronomic practices and what we need to do. We're already beginning to do that. We're doing a lot of train-the-trainer, programs to train more extension agents for the subnationals. But most importantly, looking at the deficit or the present ratio of farmer extension, which is too high, we are also working to bring in the ICT, e-extension service, where we will develop an e-extension platform that will have provision for interpretation or translation of key messages into the major Nigerian languages, into English, into Pidgin, into Hausa, into Yoruba, into Igbo.
Okay.
And as time goes on also, in certain peculiar cases where maybe we have certain commodities that are peculiar to some areas, we could also decide to look at that localized language, for that area. Now, in all of this, we believe we need to empower the Nigerian farmer. And to empower the Nigerian farmer means he has to have inputs. And so the federal government also has, over this last 1 year, been providing a lot of inputs in terms of fertilizer, in terms of agrochemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and overall ensuring that we are working through the right farmers. Because one challenge we came on board, when we came on board, what we met was a situation where everybody claimed to be a farmer. And you see data showing you that so number of farmers have been given so number of support. And at the end of the day, there is really nothing on ground to show for it, which means there is some kind of ghosting, and Nigerians are not going to eat ghost food. Nigerians want to eat real food. Real food produced by real farmers. And so we are working with other partners. The National Bureau of Statistics, we've worked together with them over the last 1 year, where they came up with the National Agricultural Census Samples Census report, which showed that in that report, Nigeria have 42 million farm families, households that are involved in different types of agriculture, crops, livestock, fisheries, or a combination of any one of these. And on the basis of that, we are now beginning to get a proper direction as to our planning and as to what we intend to do. Now, let me say also, I'm happy Adegoro is here. We believed when we came on board, we need to understand the stakeholders that we support the growth of the agricultural sector. So we said, where are stakeholder reports? What we had was just something wishy-washy. And we felt, look, it's time for us to now do a very thorough stakeholder analysis and mapping. That way we understand people who are in the sector, what their needs are, those who are doing what and where they are located. One thing is, yes, every time we talk about smallholder farmers as the main thing, but statistics and studies is now confirming that there is a shift. A shift to what? Many farmers having 2 hectares, 5 hectares, 10 hectares. We're now beginning to get, inroads of people who before were not concerned with agriculture, who are investing massively in this, space called agriculture. And we don't know what they are doing and where they are. We felt that is a missed opportunity that we must bring back to the fora. Now, in doing all of this resonates with the kind of visioning of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who believes that, yes, if you solve a problem, you should also provide a sustainable system that will not allow you to reverse back to the problem that you have just solved. And so we believe with the stakeholder analysis, when concluded, we will know exactly who is doing what and where. Now, when you juxtapose that with the National Agricultural Sample Census report that tells us we have 42 farm families, you can imagine in terms of targeting of our agricultural programs, we are now going to have better clarity, and we are going to introduce efficiency in terms of resource use and allocation. I believe very strongly that this last 1 year has enabled us to understand the key issues around the agricultural sector. And in terms of the programming and what government is doing, and we continue to do in the next couple of years, we are on course to reversing on a permanent basis anything called food insecurity in Nigeria. One thing is people talk about agricultural potential. We know Nigerians are not going to eat potential. Nigerians want to eat real food. So for that reason, this potential shows that Nigeria should have wet season farming, at the same time dry season farming. So last year also, we kick-started our dry season farming, which we did successfully with the wheat. For the first time, Nigeria produced wheat in quantities we've never produced before. And many people now saw the opportunity, and we're having interested, investors now who want to take advantage over the next, dry season, which is coming. That is 2024-2025 dry season. And as we speak, we are already putting in place measures that will enable us to maximize what we can achieve. For example, water resources that have the irrigation dams and whatnot. We have established the Agriculture Water Resources Joint Action for Food Security Committee.
Okay.
And they are already working. In fact, the technical committee, I think, should be providing a report to us either today or tomorrow. We are beginning to now understand that we can maximize. If we can have, for example, 1 million hectare under dry, season farming, you can imagine what that would be. It means whatever we are able to harvest from this rainy season, taking us into the dry season. By the time the dry season food start coming out, the lean period which brought about this and exacerbated this, so-called hunger issue, next cycle you will not see it again.
All right.
How do you intend to do that because of the lean period you talked about?
Yeah.
We have this issue of storage challenge.
Yes.
Have you been able to solve that?
In terms of storage, I want you to know that there is a system, and we have already started engaging all parties. For example, the post-harvest issue is a major challenge.
Yeah.
And we have already instituted some framework that will enable us to begin to address that. So this year, we had what we call Post-Harvest Connect, which brought all people interested in the value chain called post-harvest. And we have had a serious discussion, and there are plans that have been put in place, responsibility allocated, and that is in the works. But most importantly, our strategic food reserve is also there, why the states are supposed to have what they call the buffer stock. And many of the state governments have taken this very seriously based on our engagement with them. You will recall for the first time, almost more than 22 governors have had engagement with us directly in terms of how we are going to work together in the interest of our collective food security. So a lot is happening, and I'm sure in the course of this program we'll be opportune to tell more.
Okay. All right.
There's still more to see.
Thank you, Senator Sabi Abdullahi. You've said a lot, and indeed, on the basis of what you have said, the government is doing a lot. But even by your own admission, people don't want to see that a lot is being done. They want to see the results on the ground. Yeah. And so that's why I'm asking, what has, for instance, you said it's a 0.02 horsepower mechanization that we are at. With the 4 mechanization programs that government has introduced, where are we now? Where are we? You said the strategic food reserves is there, but at what level? The reserves could be there. Is it full? Or is it half empty?
Yeah, I
or
think
somewhere
we should
along the line?
understand the way this thing works. When this challenge came on board, remember we released from that strategic reserve 42,000 metric tons. If there was nothing, that couldn't have been released. Okay. But remember, even when you say a reserve, it means you also have to stock. Now, this is the rainy season. We're getting out of the rainy season now. Immediately, harvest start coming on board. Of course, there will be plan to restock. The policy is that you take 5% of your total harvest into your strategic reserve. Then for the buffer stock, which is at the state level or the subnational level, they're supposed to take 10%. And then the rest is left for the process of, movement here and there as per trade. Now, all of this, I will tell you, based on what has happened in the last 1 year, everybody has now woken up to the reality of the importance of keeping this. In the past, the state governments have not taken the issue of buffer stock serious. But right now they do. And you could see that while the state, the federal government was releasing the, 42,000 metric tons of assorted, what did they call it? Various state governments also were combining that particular, supply with their own and making it available to their citizens. And different states have different programs. So this is ongoing. And what I want to say is that in terms of result, like you are saying, definitely in the last 1 month, certain food prices, like, for example, you take Irish potato, it was going for about 180,000, and today it has crashed below 40,000. That tells you that the production is on. And you see, we don't want to come here and see what we don't know. As we speak, our experts are in the field doing what we call the wet season survey for us to have an indication of the level of production that has gone on in the country. Because some people will tell you, no, people are not farming. No, people are farming. People have gone back to farm. When we came on board, we said, look, we have to go back to farm. We have said it even on this platform. And a number of Nigerians have answered that call. I'm from Niger State. And if I'm traveling, I travel over 8 hours on the road. And from here to New Busa, which is my hometown, I have seen on both right and left side of the road as I was traveling, areas where nobody was cropping before are now being cropped. And if you put that side by side with the massive, program of Niger State government that is currently ongoing, then you can imagine what is happening. In fact, if you recall, when former Governor Bago was distributing, his, what did they call it, as a result of the response to this crisis, he said the last year dry season farming, the stock is where he took to make available to Nigerites. So, and if you also look at it, state governments that do not have the capacity are now working with other state governments. There's what we call Produce for Lagos, because Lagos State remain the #1 largest consumption, site for most food items. And the Lake Rise project between Lagos State and Kebbi State is there as an example to show that yes, we are not just interested, because what normally leads to wastage is when there is no market. And Niger State also has the same arrangement, MOU, signed with the Lagos State government on Produce for Lagos. So there are a lot of things happening. And I agree, and we admit that we met a crisis. That crisis will not just come like a Midas touch. You can't solve it like a Midas touch, just touching one program and then it's gone. But what we are here to say is that just like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has promised Nigerians, he said renewed hope is here. And we can say gladly that based on things we have put on ground, truly that renewed hope is here. And Nigerians in no distant time will begin to see an easing of most of these issues. Rightly, anytime we have pressure on our economy, as far as Nigeria is concerned, even when we entered recession in 2016 and then later in 2018 or thereabout, I was in the Senate. I recall the debate we had. It was the agricultural sector that still took Nigeria out of a recession. So we have that opportunity, and the president understands this, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that that God-given opportunity is made very good use of, so that Nigerians will see the ease. Agriculture is the way to go. Agriculture is the next wealth creation site, and a number of youths are taking advantage. In fact, one thing came to my mind. The youths organized themselves and saw an opportunity in bee keeping, the apiculture, that they realized it's a multi-billion industry globally, and Nigeria has tremendous opportunity. And they organized themselves. They are the ones celebrating the World Apiculture Day, or World Bee Day as it is. And bees are very important for what? The crop production. They are the ones that do the pollination. Without bee, your crop will not be pollinated. So you can see there are a lot of things happening side by side, just like I had in the report that you just played for us before we began. Sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, they are all things that are packaged, and it's a combination of so many things that have to happen consistently. Now, overall, Before now, people say no political will, and I'm happy the farmers associations are here. I will not be speaking for them, but I bet, and I'm saying it before him, that the highest political will ever for the sector is this particular period.
Okay.
With President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Okay, Honorable Minister, thank you very much for that. You have reeled out, a lot of efforts of the federal government to, provide, to solve the food challenge that we have in the country. So let's bring in other guests into this conversation. First, let me bring in the President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabir Ibrahim. You have listened to the Honorable Minister, and he has reeled out the efforts of government. And let's look at the challenges of farmers. With all these efforts of government, have they been able to address the challenges of farmers in this country?
Well, I must give kudos to the 1 year in office of the leaders of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, because I've been around, for a very long time, from being president of Poultry Association of Nigeria to date. Now the farmers are actually carried along, because in almost all the issues the Honorable Minister reeled out, we have taken part in meetings and we have got proper briefings, and we know that there is work in progress, and a lot of things, a lot of mileage has been covered in so many of the areas that he mentioned, and especially we had been saying that the subnationals must key into the federal plans for Nigeria to be food secure, and we have seen a lot of action in that. We were privileged to escort Mr. President to Niger, for instance, when they reeled out their mechanization plans and all that, and AFAN has an MOU with the Niger Food to produce what they produce. Even the minister alluded to it, that the dry season production helped a lot in solving some problems in Niger State. Now, the minister mentioned a number of things which are very, very good for agriculture if they are done, transparently by all people. I have seen the effort in terms of supporting farmers with fertilizers and many things, many inputs. They have done their best, and because of logistics, some of the things were handed over to the leaders in the subnationals. I'm sorry to tell the minister, if he doesn't know, that some of them did not really do this thing as well as intended, because we've had people complaining about not getting some of these things free as the government intended, and not the right quantities and all that. But that aside, I think since we are in the working committees, we would help out with the monitoring and evaluation, and I hope the Honorable Minister will take what I'm saying in that light, because these are real-time reports and people are hands-on in them, and I'm sure he has seen them in social media and all that. Now, unfortunately for Nigeria, from the 2020 or 2019 COVID-19 pandemic, the food system has had its own challenges, and that also was exacerbated by insecurity. The Honorable Minister did mention all these efforts, but I think he forgot to mention point blank the issue of insecurity. Now, even though smallholder farmers are not necessarily the engine of food production in a normal sense, in Nigeria, unfortunately, the situation is such that the smallholder farmers are actually the 75% the engine room of production. And it is very well to know that in so many areas they are not able to seamlessly produce as they used to. And therefore, we have a lot of pressure that led to the protests. Now, these protests are not necessarily because of lack of availability of food, but lack of affordability of it.
Okay.
And many things have happened even beyond the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, you know, as far as we are concerned, because the monetary system is suffering a lot of setback. The purchasing power of the Naira is very, very low. And so even if you have food available, people who cannot afford it will say that it's not available, it's not there anymore. And that's why so many people came out to say, look, we are facing a lot of problems. Even you, the public servants, are aware that your salaries, your packages cannot feed you and all that. And this is reality. So no matter the effort of government, there will always be this feeling that we need some more, like Oliver Twist. Every Nigerian needs more intervention and all that. But on the whole, I think this administration has shown a lot of political will to be able to really extricate Nigerians from the pangs of hunger or want.
Okay.
But I would want to look at it as work in progress. You see, 1 year may not be sufficient for real assessment. But I think there is a change of mindset. I have been there for a very long time since he was working in ARCN. He knows. We've seen a lot of things happening, and he knows this area very well. He knows, and he has said it. He's not being selfish by saying that there is more now. We can feel it in our bones that we are carried along. In fact, I can assure you that for associations, for instance, this is the first time that the government is not meddlesome. It's not the one creating problems between us. In fact, it's bringing us together.
Okay.
Because we have had times when leadership there was taking sides and making things difficult for us to work. And so this divide and rule and all that has gone. Nobody is talking about it. I think the people are fixated on doing good. And we need to encourage them. That's why I will not take placard on some of the things that are happening. They are out of necessity. For instance, the window to import some of the items in Nigeria, because the global accepted principle is that you can import even where you have comparative advantage when you have stresses in the food system. And that is, I think, what is happening on some of the things that the government is bringing for 150 days and for fixed quanta. It happens even in the United States. Sometimes, you have problems with something and you import it. It happens with almost all the first world countries. And so it is okay for Nigeria to do that. And that's why as he is saying that some semblance of lower prices of food items are beginning to manifest. In some areas, like where I come from, we produce a lot of millet. And millet has a very short maturity period, and it is already coming out. And then there is maize. There is early maize. Those who are from the southwest and all that will know that, and even in the north. Yes. So you see it now, they are roasting maize and all that around, and some of it, even though not dry enough for feed, for animal feed and all that, it is good enough for food, for consumption. So as it is becoming available, prices are definitely coming down. And like potato is, once it comes out in the potato basket of the country, either when it is not sold on time, it goes bad, and therefore its prices will have to come down for it to be sold. So a lot of things are happening, and all we need to do is to encourage the leaders to transparently implement the good policies. Right. As to mechanization, as far as we are concerned, once mechanization takes its rightful place in Nigeria, we will optimize productivity such that we will play that role that God has given to us and Africa has given to us. Because invariably, Nigeria feeds a very large percentage of the Africans in this hemisphere. Because we are crying about food and all that. You still find people coming from Nigeria, coming from northern Ghana and all that, buying from Nigeria. So it's not as if Nigeria has no food, but the pressure on it is colossal. And this is why, I told you that those who know what is happening will only sympathize with the situation in this country. We will not go out to criticize people because we want to criticize.
Thank you. Thank you, Kabir Ibrahim, for your opening remarks. Let me bring Temitokpe Adegoroye into this conversation. You are a young person. I don't know for how long you've been in the sector, but has it become a bit more attractive for young people to go into farming in Nigeria now? Because I know when you say farming, people look at you, especially as a young person, that's for old men. So is it more attractive now for young people to go into farming? And if you say so, what are the indices?
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here. We're contributing to the conversation with the Honorable Minister of State and Architect Kabir. Let me start by saying the organization I lead, Sahel Consulting, we are committed to transforming the food and nutrition landscape across the continent. And we've been doing that for a number of years now. I would say, if I count 1 to about 14 years. So I think we've seen, in the length and breadth of the food ecosystem, what has been done in the last, 14, 15 years. And I would actually like to contribute very quickly, if you permit me, to the ongoing conversation around, food security, because it's important to, and I love the submissions of the Honorable Minister of State and Architect Kabir. But usually when I have this opportunity to contribute to this kind of conversation, I like to look at it from a systems perspective. Because that's who we are. At Sahel, we are an ecosystem builder, and we try to, bring in the systems thinking into addressing the complex issues within the food ecosystem, because I think it's a very complex ecosystem. And I must say that a lot has been done. And I must say on a personal level that for the very first time in a long time, I think we have people within the ministry, specifically within the Ministry of Agriculture, who have not just the political will, but a lot of, that backed up by action. And I've had several interactions with the Honorable Minister of State, so I know, many of those things that he's saying, but I believe that we just have to do more, and do more from a systems perspective. And I think he also alluded to that. Systems perspective from this side, I believe for us to be able to sustain many of the cues. So we look at food security, addressing food security from 2 broad lenses. One lens is to address the immediate issues and ensure there is enough food in the system for people to actually, feed on. The second is for us to build the right frameworks and systems to ensure that we have what it takes to not go back into, hunger-like situations in future. And how do we do that? We've talked about the need for Nigerian farmers to be able to access quality seed here this morning. That requires an entire systems transformation or systemic transformation. We now need to start to, and I know there's a lot of effort already there from the Ministry of Agriculture and the National Agricultural Seed Council, but more and more must be done. We need to now take seed planning and coordination very seriously. We now need to make sure that it is not just about giving seeds to farmers, one-off. It's about ensuring that we equip the research institutions to produce the right early generation seed materials. We need to make sure that we build the capacity and evolve or allow the system to evolve new early generation seed companies that can multiply those EGS at the right commercial quantities. We need to connect those people to the private seed companies that require the quality EGS to plant And of course, if we do that and that chain works really well, smallholder farmers will be able to buy quality seed. And if it is commercially viable, if the entire system is commercially viable, it becomes sustainable. I will touch briefly on extension, which I think also is another very big deal. Again, there's been a lot of work happening in extension, but again, we need to do more, and we need to look at it again from a systems perspective. And I feel like the government has a very unique opportunity in there. Many times when I speak, also maybe because I belong to the private sector, I like to look at things from a private sector perspective. I feel like there are a lot of very fantastic models, in addition to what the government is doing now. There are a lot of very fantastic models that have been tried in some way by the private sector that are seems to work, that we must really try to understand, investigate, and find a way to scale them. I think we need to get to a point, and this is also linked to the question you asked me about, the involvement of youth. We need to get to a point with agricultural extension where we start to think about, or we start to see agricultural extension workers as, what we call nowadays, farmer business associates. We need people in extension who see it as an opportunity to transfer value to farmers, to get something in return.
Okay.
The government cannot continue to pay agricultural extension workers. It's not sustainable. So we basically need to build a business case and a business model that supports agricultural extension service delivery to farmers across the length and breadth of the country. And if there is transfer of value, then it becomes sustainable. And there are models that have worked. There are quite a number of young organizations, young people in Nigeria that are already trying this farmer business associate model of extension. And it's really working, and they have hundreds and thousands of extension workers within their platform that are already providing services to farmers at that level, which we need to try to support and encourage and scale. There's another part of it which has really grown in the last few years, and Ade Kabiru is also the head of NABG, one of the leadership of NABG, and within the NABG we have, the NABG is the umbrella body of the private agribusiness agribusinesses in Nigeria, and we've seen a lot of interest and a rise in the number of several service delivery provisions or service provisions to smallholder farmers from the private sector. We have a lot of organizations in Nigeria today that have thousands of farmers within their network, either to aggregate commodities from those farmers. They just don't aggregate commodities. They go there and provide a bundle of services to those farmers. They provide extension service delivery, they give them the ergonomic practices, they advise them on what to do, they even offer credit, offer insurance. Those are models that have worked. And if I think about this from the top of my head, we have more than 20 organizations that have thousands of farmers within their network that have benefited from that. Those models must scale. For me, I feel that those models, of course, plus outgrower schemes, in-grower schemes, backward integration opportunities in the system by the private sector, I think those are ways for us to ensure that we provide adequate extension services to farmers. And if we do it that way, there is transfer of value, and everybody makes money from the system, and it becomes sustainable. So those are also ways to encourage youth to participate in agriculture. And just to answer your question very directly, I would say we're beginning to see a rise in the involvement of youth. A lot of youth are now very much involved in agriculture, of course, because of the rise of the opportunity that agri-technology presents. We have, I'm also the head, the executive chair of an organization called the African Food Changemakers. And we have a budding community of agri-business entrepreneurs in the food ecosystem across the continent who are really investing hard in the sector. And many of these people are really young people who are leveraging technology to address issues of precision agriculture, or applying biotechnology, or exploring opportunity to provide bioengineering support to to companies, to research institutions, or to smallholder farmers. So I think there is a rise of youths, and many a time they come with various unique business models, and opportunities for them to be able to address very specific issues within the sector. So that's there. In fact, interestingly, it was because of the need to encourage youth participation that a few years ago, Sahel Consulting started a program we call the Sahel Scholars Program, because we realized that there was a need for us to not just start to encourage youth when they are out of the universities, but right from the university we start to encourage them. And many of us are products of universities of agriculture, so we understand the level.
Is this in collaboration with the government, or you're just doing it on your own?
Well, so we started this on our own, but now we're beginning to collaborate with government. In fact, the last Sahel Scholars Conference, the Minister for Youth Development was part of the program. We had a lot of conversation.
How far do you think we are from the level of mechanization that is required to truly guarantee food sufficiency?
Well, I must say we're still far. We're still quite far. And I think the Honorable Minister of State did allude to the gap in mechanization. When you compare what the global best practice is compared to what we do in Nigeria today. But I think, again, if I look at it from a systems perspective, there are a lot of very fantastic initiatives that this administration is currently exploring to address mechanization issues. But I think in addition to all of those things, one of the things we need to do is to actually develop the right policy for agricultural mechanization in Nigeria. I think we need a separate policy for agricultural mechanization. I conducted some research a few years back around agricultural mechanization and what's happening within the local agricultural agro-allied equipment fabrication sector in Nigeria. And some of the results I found were quite mind-blowing. That we have fabricators in Nigeria who probably only require a few skills here and there to be able to perfect their trade, but they do not have access to those skills. And maybe what they just need is a place where they could actually have shared access to resources, like maybe laser cutting machine, a place where we could actually find a way to have conversations with TCN and the electricity suppliers to say, just give them electricity here in this industrial hall. They fabricate equipment there. But many of them will tell you, Temi, I just need to know if I'm going to have access to electricity for 6 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours, and I can plan my business, because there are certain things, there are certain methods they call, there are certain equipment they use that they can't even use it, powering it without the grid, the national grid. So I feel there's a big opportunity there for us if we unlock the potential within that particular subsector. There's a big opportunity for us to actually grow, not just importing agricultural equipment anymore, but we need to, that's why I say we need a policy document, we need a strategy document that lays out a very clear roadmap and vision of what agricultural mechanization is supposed to be, what the journey will be for us in the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you very much.
If we import today, ideally, down the line, we should actually get to a point where we stop importing and start to build systems and structures to support fabrication here.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Temitope Adegoroye, for your views there. Honorable Minister of State, you have heard both of them, and they have reeled out a lot of issues here. And one major issue that the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabil Ibrahim, talked about is the issue of security, the insecurity, which is also a major challenge. And we know that government is doing a lot, to curb insecurity in the country. But tell us more about it. And also, we know that we have read that a lot of trucks, of food items and all that, they are being driven out, in hundreds of trucks out of this country to neighboring countries, where we are having shortage of food in this country. I mean, I know you must have heard of that, you must have read it. So what exactly is happening? How is government addressing that? Plus other issues that they have raised.
Well, thank you very much, and I must thank them for their incisive submissions, and of course very objective one for that matter. Now, one thing I would like to say here in terms of the security situation is that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security had a program in partnership with the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, which they have what they call the Agro Rangers. And the Agro Rangers were designed to provide some safety, feel for farmers across the production clusters. We've reactivated that, and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps is currently kitting and preparing 10,000 Agro Rangers, and the plan is to move up to about 30,000.
Okay.
So that we'll have them all over the state. And I think a very classical example is Borno State. The Borno State governor saw the need for that, and I think in conjunction with his, the JNTF that they are also providing a very, that safe corridor for people to really be able to go back to farm and work. So that is in the works. But you see, in all of this, one thing I must say here is that let's be a bit patient with government.
Okay.
Because even when we say all of these things, doing those things is not even going to translate immediately into the resolution of the issue as people are saying it. If I say we have 10,000 Agro Rangers, the Agro Rangers are not the ones who are going to create food, for example, but they are going to support farmers in their various production sites to be able to go back to farm. And I think what is important for us to appreciate is that in spite of the insecurity challenge, corridors are now being cleared. The security agencies are clearing so many corridors that hitherto people were not able to go to farm. And farming activities have now resumed in those areas. My state was one classical example. I represented Niger North. And Niger North, which is Borgo and Kontagora area, we had areas where people could not go to farm. But a lot of these areas have now, seen some semblance of, restoration of normalcy, and they're able to go back to farm. The same thing even in the Niger East, where we had some issues around Siroro. Government has taken so many steps to intervene in those areas, and a number of the farmers are able to go back and take advantage of. It's not completely safe, but at least there is some semblance of the needle has been moved, and we could see some mileage being covered. And I think that is what we are saying. And that's why the point he has raised, Temitope raised with respect to system. In my total submission, I was looking at the complete package of things that constitute that system. And that's why I said we are looking at transforming our food system. If you don't transform your food system, it's a system. For example, you produce. How do you evacuate from areas of high production to the areas of needs at low price? Those are all issues that have been looked at. And I think that's why the AFAN president said there are some things that are beyond what we are doing. But because of the whole of government approach, which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has so, instituted, there are a lot of areas where there are handshakes now within the confines of what we are doing. And the Minister of Finance, who is the coordinating Minister of the Economy, is also taking a look at all of these areas. When we speak and indicate areas where there are challenges, because he's coordinating the economy, he's able to now see where there are gaps, and if those gaps have to do with funding, they are now able to move in and to deal with those issues. And that explains why, for example, when the crisis came on board, apart from the reserve, there was also a program that was packaged around the processors. The AFAN president is here. We had a very robust meeting with all the rice processors.
Okay.
He was part of it. And all of the people who are involved in processing. We sat down, and government was able to secure from their warehouses, not in the market, because going to the market will have distorted the price and increased the pressure. But from their stock, government now went in to have purchase agreement with them for 58,000 metric tons of processed rice. That is the one you had being talked about, taking it to the market and selling at a reduced price. So you can see we are looking at all of these things from that system perspective that he has said. Because it's one thing.
But all these government interventions, are they being monitored? Because most times,
yes, they are being monitored.
To ensure that the...
Yeah, they are being monitored.
Okay.
They are being monitored. You see, one thing we should understand is that different states have different pressures and demands. So that you see this state, even if we give the items, that this state is doing its own now, does not guarantee that the next state will do its own then. Because everybody is looking at its own peculiarity and trying to solve it as a case-by-case basis. But one thing is certain, different states have started working on that. And of course, the media reports about states that have already done their own is all out there in the media. Now, in terms of monitor evaluation, of course, there are committees that are working on it. There is a joint, interministerial committee under the chairmanship of the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources, and many other, including even Minister of Youth. So all of these things, like I would like to say, is designed to bring succor, a resolution of the issues, so that this pressure will come down. But while we are doing that, we are not unmindful of what we need to keep doing. Even if the result will not be shown in 1 year, if we don't start now, it means we are postponing when the result is supposed to come out. Because if you have things you need to do in 2 years or 3 years, if you don't start now, then if you don't start counting now, then your 3 years is far. But when you start counting now, it means you are bringing it closer. And I think we have taken a look at all of those issues, and we are working very fast to make sure that, yes, these things we are talking about is about human beings. And we are aware that the Constitution is clear. The security and welfare of the citizen is the primary responsibility of government. And we also believe that one person cannot do it. From the submission of Temitope, you could now understand why we said we want to do stakeholder mapping and analysis. Some of the points he has raised, without a thorough stakeholder analysis and mapping, you will not know those things are there. Now, if you know they are there from even what he has said here, then it means you cannot begin to do programming around the support you need to provide to these categories of people so that you remove their pain points. Now, side by side also this year, we have another project that we said is going to look at the ease of doing agri-business in Nigeria. Because agri-business is different from the regular business. The risks involved in agriculture are different. Just yesterday, the National Agricultural Growth Scheme Agro Pocket Project we have, which is a policy support program of the African Development Bank that is designed to help us ramp up our production of staple foods, of wheat, rice, maize, cassava. Just yesterday, we had a workshop looking at risk management in support of farmers, that is the insurance issue. Because when the whole program was packaged, insurance was not captured. Now what that means is that farmers are left to their fate. And farmers have received so many shocks. From climate change shocks to so many other things.
Honorable Minister, I'll pause you there because my director is calling that we should go for a break. When we come back, we'll continue from where we stop. We take a break now. The conversation continues. Stay with us.
Did you know that President Bola Tinubu has approved the suspension of import duties and tariffs on rice, maize and other essential food items for the next 5 months? The President has also approved the suspension of import duties on pharmaceutical raw materials and equipment. This will help bring down the prices of food and drugs across the country. All hands are on deck to ensure that things get better for all Nigerians. This is the renewed hope.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town. Hey! Mr. and Mrs. Jaye Davies!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop as a nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interests of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right, for this, for the love of country.
Thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria, where we've been discussing food security with the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security and other guests, of course, in the studio. Now, Honorable Minister, you launched us into insurance just before we went on that break. You may want to round off your thoughts in the next few minutes and perhaps tell us also how you intend to tackle the issues of the impact of climate change, for instance, on food productivity.
Well, thank you once again. Like I said, just yesterday, we had a workshop to look at the issue of insurance. And the workshop is actually a sensitization. All our the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has state coordinators. So it's a train-the-trainer, and the state coordinators are supposed to go back there. We have various programs who will now take the message of the need for insurance. And of course, in that, the AFAN was represented by the Vice President. All the stakeholders are there. One thing I will say is that we realize as a ministry, we cannot do this work alone. So we believe in collaboration, partnership, and working together. That is within the confines of the Renewed Hope agenda. And that's why the President in his Renewed Hope agenda has inclusivity as one of the key agenda, which means whatever you are doing, anybody that has one or two or three things to contribute in adding value, you must bring those people on board. And I think so far in the ministry, we are taking that very seriously. In fact, part of our critical success factor is the fact that we must bring inclusivity as a continuous activity that we must do. So within this context, for the insurance, we are providing, the first support within the context of the National Agricultural Growth Scheme project, which a lot of our farmers are being onboarded, so that as they go into this production, they'll be able to have some succor. Now, you recall that there was, the, what did they call it, ginger blight disease in Kaduna State. The few farmers who had insurance policy with Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation were able to see the value. But remember also the ministry had to step in by providing 1.5 billion from the National Agricultural Development Fund to support farmers who will now have to move away from ginger production to other crops to allow a resolution of the fungal disease that affected the ginger, farming. So we are taking all of this seriously. And you talked about the the issue of climate change. Now, one impact of climate change is that you need information, you need data. So we are rebuilding the National Agricultural Data System. Currently, there is effort, in collaboration with the Central Delivery Unit, headed by Hajia Hadiza Bala Usman, to take a look at how to bring everybody on board, so that at the end of the day, in terms of what information needs to be made available, will be made available. And remember also that the Ministry of Water Resources, just first quarter of this year, actually released a report telling us the number of states and local government that are going to be in flood risk. So all of these things were taken on board. But beyond that also, we know the productivity of every farmer is tied down to the soil. Okay. So one of the programs we have introduced this year is what we call the National Farmer Soil Health Card Scheme, which will help farmers to have insight into what the health of their soil is in terms of their farms, so that when they come to production, they will know what kind of mineralization in terms of fertilizer, in terms of micronutrients they are supposed to have, and even in terms of even the agro chemicals that they are supposed to apply. Because there are, what do they call it, chemicals they use when they want to plant. It's a function of what that soil dictates. So all of these things are measures we are putting in place. We are hoping before the end of this year, the pilot is ongoing. And last year when we did the wheat farming for the dry season, we also did the pilot, where we sent our soil scientists to go all over the fields where this activity is going to take place, to look at the current state of the soil in those areas. And that report helped us to address the challenges. And I did remember vividly in the course of activity, the president is here, he will remember there was deficiency of fertilization by some blenders. And at the end of the day, because of the report we had, the experts were able to go back and provide alternative on sound scientific basis based on the report they have. That is the kind of things we're talking about. That way, in terms of resource use optimization, farmers will now be able to go to farm, plant, know exactly the kind of fertilizer they are supposed to produce. Then our fertilizer blenders will no longer be providing a basic fertilizer blend. They will be having blends that are targeting specific soil types and specific needs of farmers. So all of these things, I want to say, in the long run, represent the renewed hope of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, like you said, people want to see a resolution of the issue now. But that resolution of the issue, while we're beginning to see some good, outcome, it is not going to be a flash in the pan. It's going to be a continuous resolution until we get to that stage where every Nigerian will feel a comfortable level in terms of food security needs. That is what we are working for.
A continuous resolution.
Yes.
Until we get
right now, rainy season
land
is on, but then I will tell you we are already planning for the dry season.
Okay. All right.
Because we want to increase our opportunities by having more people going into the dry season farming.
Okay, let's bring in other speakers now. Let's bring in the president of the Farmers Association, Kabi Ibrahim. Now, what are the immediate needs of farmers right now, and is government actually addressing those needs?
Well, I told you from the beginning that the government, whatever is happening around, is work in progress. Certainly, many things are required to make the farmer scale up their productivity, which will in turn make food sufficient, and then we will get to food security. There are many laudable efforts that are being made. Fertilizers are going to farmers in some quantities that are free of charge. A lot of work is going on actually finding soil-specific and crop-specific fertilizers, so that the farmers will spend less. Instead of buying generic fertilizers, we would buy such fertilizers that will be useful for such crops. And therefore, we will spend less in production and therefore sell to you for a lot less. Because what goes in has to be recouped for us to be able to sell and be able to go back to plant again. Now, basically, what should happen in a nation is that whoever is producing should be incentivized to produce more, to satisfy the nation and to be able to export and to earn foreign exchange into that nation. And this is what the countries that have made good strides in economy have been doing. If you look at a small country like the Netherlands, very small country, maybe not as big as Kano, and the population is 17 million. Farmers are 55,000, and the income from agriculture is in excess of $300 billion, and which is only second to that of the United States. They are doing agriculture all year round. What the minister has said, you do rain-fed and do dry, but we are saying we should do year round. We should also, and the effort is being made to do what I just mentioned, that you should have crop-specific fertilizers and soil-specific fertilizers, and you should have healthy soil. Because this is sine qua non to productivity. A seed is also good. The soil on which it is planted must be good. And the practice that is being deployed must be good. And then you must be able to move it around from place of production to place of use. You must be able also to incentivize the producer to get good market. And this is where we are coming from, from agribusiness. You don't just do agriculture for subsistence and expect it to take you anywhere. You must be able to treat it as a business, and that is why we are privileged to look at it from the two perspectives, from the business end and from the productivity end, which is a very unique opportunity. And that's why we are working together with the government, collaborating, and we're creating partnerships, and we're talking to experts who will guide our farmers and all that. And insurance is very, very key. We have been telling our farmers that you should not just take insurance because you want to get a loan. You should take insurance like a precondition for agricultural productivity, because there are so many things debilitating against success. What is known as climate change is there. You have droughts, you have floodings. People should not run to government for money because they have suffered flooding. They should rather, if it comes from government, it's a bonus, but the insurance company must be able to do that. And that's why, from NAEC point of view, we had been talking about having something like fleet insurance. By this I mean every farmer in Nigeria, and I'm happy that even the Bureau for Statistics has said there are about 40 million. Now, if every one of the 40 million contributes just 1,000 naira to insurance, the NAEC will have a lot of money, and it will now pay off people who suffer from any actions of the climate or any other thing, acts of war or anything. So to this extent, I want to say that we look forward to a lot more from the government to incentivize the smallholder farmer and to make the smallholder farmer to move from small holding to commercial holding, and to make Nigeria an agricultural country like it had always been. We have over 90 million hectares of cultivable and irrigable land. Right now we are using less than 40%.
All right.
We want a situation where we would do more, we would be able to produce more, we will play a very important role within Africa and at the global stage.
Perhaps able to exhaust the 90 million hectares available. Thank you, Kabir Ibrahim. Temitope, we are running out of time, so let's make it quick. 1 year down, what should be the priorities, in your opinion, of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security going forward?
It's a tough question, but I will try to do justice to it. And I said it's tough because I think in 1 year, a lot has been done. I mean, we've listened to the Honorable Minister of State, and we've heard many of the laudable programs and initiatives of the government, and not just the initiatives, but the actions and the steps, they are taking in the right direction. And I honestly think they are all, steps in the right direction. And just as Architect Kabir said, that it's all work in progress. From where I see it, personally as a critical stakeholder and someone who is managing one of the, I would say, leading important organizations in this landscape, some critical priorities must be considered in addition to what the government is still doing, and we are working together in that. Number one, I talked about the need to think through very creatively what the agricultural mechanization roadmap for the country is going to be. I think from a systems thinking, long-term perspective, we need to figure out what that is, what that looks like. A strategic plan, first a policy document that really help us lay out what our priorities would be, the role of government, the role of other stakeholders in that space, and a strategic plan of where we want to be in the next 10 years. I think that is really very critical. Number two, I want to echo Architect Kabiru by saying that in the end, what is important to guarantee that we have enough food? It doesn't matter whether neighboring countries are coming to get food from us. Honestly, I feel it's a plus on our side. All we need to do is to increase and produce more. I mean, when we look at the size of Nigeria and the size of many of the countries around us, I mean, we can feed them. Because I believe we can feed many, many countries in Africa. We just need to increase our productivity. Now, there are some very specific steps that must be taken to be able to increase productivity. Number one, we need to fix issues in the seed sector. There are a lot of initiatives currently happening. We have the National Agricultural Seed Council under several initiatives now, increasing the number of seed inspectors to ensure that we reduce the issues around the use of poor quality seeds. Of course, we need to ensure we perfect the coordination and planning of the seed system more to ensure that we have a very clear pathway and a link between research, early generation seed supply, as well as improved seeds, certified seeds to farmers.
Okay.
We need very specific incentives that unlocks opportunities for smallholder farmers, as well as, and I call them the lifeblood of the food system, the smallholder farmers and the SMEs, the food entrepreneurs. If we have a lot of food entrepreneurs in the ecosystem who are taking up many of the commodities coming from the farms, and we have a huge number of smallholder farmers, what we need to do is to make sure that agricultural financing works for them and agricultural insurance works for them, and that we have the right data. We need to know the number of farmers we have. We need a farmer data registry. We need a registry. That's extremely important, because not just important to have it, but it's important also for us to inform many of the other activities and plans and initiatives of the government, right? We need to make sure that if we have the registry of farmers, linking this now to issues around climate change and the shocks that brings to farming, we need to make sure that we have the right early warning system established. I mean, we've not really enjoyed a very robust early warning system in the last few years. As an opportunity, we're currently working on a program, and we're collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture on that, and many of the other ministries of government that are responsible for, driving access to early warning data, early warning information, called Building Agricultural Systems Resilience Through Early Warning Action.
Okay.
Working with NIMET, the Ministry of Environment, to build the right systems for collecting very top quality data on weather, and also working with all the other ministries on the demand side of weather data, like the Ministry of Agriculture, NISA, water resources, to make sure that they can then use the data generated from all of those systems across Nigeria to make the right forecast, and to provide information to farmers in a way that farmers can really understand. So
all right, thank you very much.
These are really, for me, the priorities.
Yes, we know that you are so passionate about your profession. You're reeling out all these needs of the farmers and all that, and how we can improve on our food system. Because of time, we have to cut you short there so that we can have a parting shot from the Honorable Minister of State. Now, we're going to the next phase. There's the second year now. What should be the expectation of Nigerians concerning food security?
Well, the expectation of Nigerians is that as we work to build a sustainable system, we want to assure Nigerians that we're aware of what has happened in the last 1 year in terms of how we got to where we find ourselves. And we are working very hard in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that we don't have a repeat of what happened. Okay. And I'm confident that as we proceed into the months ahead, September, October, and as we begin to get more harvest, we are also making effort to make sure that post-harvest losses are tackled, because food should not go to waste in the period of abundance, and then suddenly we now have period of scarcity, and then we begin to, what did they call it? And so we are also calling on food entrepreneurs like Temitokbe has said, to take advantage of the next harvest season to begin to go into how we can get value addition to what we produce, because government alone cannot do it. But we are ready to do whatever needs to be done to make sure we stock our reserve, to make sure that there are a lot of people who are involved in the system to also add value.
What incentives are you providing for to attract people, for all this?
Well, those are issues, part of the discussions we're having. Like we said, there is a lot of work in progress. There are a lot of committees. For example, the Joint Action Committee for Food Security that I told you between Agric and Water Resources will be having its own, system that is going to be built. The technical committee is looking at the various things that we need to do to incentivize. Now, we also have the Post-Harvest Connect, which we have a technical working group there also that are looking at what needs to happen. And all of these things, like I said, when we do them, we'll now begin to take action on them as the need arises. But then, overall, what is our driving vision? Our driving vision is to restore food production cycle on a stable ground, meaning all year round farming. And to do that requires a lot of things. And those are the things we are looking at through the various programs, providing mechanization, providing, clarity in terms of the policy instruments he's talking about. Some of the policy instruments are already beginning to come out to the mechanization, because one of the things we are doing in this mechanization is to make sure there are service centers across the 774 local governments where youth will be trained to provide all of these services across the service centers in a manner that after we are looking at a time horizon within which manufacturing of agric mechanization equipment should begin to happen in the country. So it's a system we are building, and so it's a process, and we are taking it on board. But I assure Nigerians, we know what the problems are in terms of, yes, the hunger situation, but we are happy, and we give glory and thanks to Almighty Allah, who has made it possible for us to begin to see good harvest coming out, and we should all work together to ensure that we sustain these actions that we have started. It's going to be good at the end of the day.
All right.
Because renewed hope is here.
It will be good at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. I had thought that I'll have a spare 30 seconds to spare so that you talk about the Agriculture, Industry and Modernization Bill. I'm sure you will remember that. I'm trying to remember. Now you have the opportunity to do something about it.
Actually, we are having a project this year that we are reviewing all the agricultural laws with a view to bringing in gaps and also improving upon it. So one component is what he has talked about.
We've gone completely out of time. But it was Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security. We thank you very much for your time on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
And let us also thank Architect Kabir Ibrahim, who is the President of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, and indeed many other CAPs. It's a pleasure as always to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Temitokbe Adegoro, a Managing Partner, Sahel Consulting, Agriculture and Nutrition Limited. A pleasure to have you join us on the program. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
They are leading the youth assaults on a new agricultural
system. We hope to see much more about that. Yes. That's the program.
Just keep encouraging the youth.
Very much for watching.